Today I'm going to talk about what I generally call a grand unifying theory, and that is the economic index. The thing about economic indexes, we still have people sitting on their heels saying, I don't know if I want to use indexes. I think they're, we need to wait and see if they work. Economic indexes are pretty straightforward. They're just genetic accounting. So, if they're genetic accounting, it means we have to think like an accountant, right? So if you want to use indexes, you got to think like an accountant. So accountants need to, in order to calculate profit, they have to have measures, traits that you can use to calculate profit. And in the world of animal breeding, we call those economically relevant traits. You've heard of that, ERTs, economically relevant traits. Okay, so if I'm an accountant and I go to a commercial cattleman and I say, you tell me what are the input traits that I need to know to calculate profit, what would they be? Anybody want to venture? We need to know how much the cows are eating, right? Okay, so cow herd intake. What else? What other traits would be input traits? So if we know how much the cows eat, so weight, but what does that tell us? Tells you how big they are, but if you're an accountant, I'm an accountant. I want you to tell me what can I use weight to tell me about? Okay, so now you've actually moved down here. You went to output, okay? So let's throw that in there. So weight of what? Weight of what are you interested in? Calf crop. So weaning weight? Yeah. Weaning weight, okay. An output trait. Economically important output trait is weaning weight. So we got weaning weight. Okay. Calving ease, okay. I want you to carry that further. If I'm an accountant and you tell me, well, I have 30% calving difficulty in my heifers, can I calculate profit from that? I got to go one more step.
It costs me labor.
Yeah, there's labor involved, but there's also death loss, and so I need to know calving survival, right? I need to know, so if I'm down here, this is an output trait, weaning weight. Right. So if I know what they weigh on the average, and I know what percentage of the calf crop I'm going to wean, that tells me very important thing. It tells me how much weight I'm going to sell. So I got weaning weight of the calf and survival rate. Survival rate to weaning. So between these two things, if you know these two things, what does that tell the accountant? How many pounds of calf are going to be sold out of the cow-calf operation, right? So those are pretty important things, and those are economically relevant traits. If you're an accountant and you're trying to figure out what the value of a tractor is, part of that is how long is that tractor going to last, right? The longer the tractor lasts, the more we can spread out the cost of that tractor. So let's go up here and let's say under input, let's put replacement rate. Okay, replacement rate. So that tells us, what does replacement rate tell us if we're an accountant? It tells us how many of these heifer calves we have to retain in order to keep our herd size up, right? Okay, so if we have high replacement rates, that means we're going to have to take more heifers to replace into the cow herd. So replacement rate we can look at it as an input trait, and it's economically relevant. Okay? So anything else you see here that we're missing when it comes to the cow-calf business in calculating profit?
Cow salvage
So,
value.
exactly, right there. Jim went right to where salvage value.
25% of the cow-calf
Yep,
income comes from cow cows. I learned that yesterday.
yep. So this is important. That's an output trait, right? So one of the things that happens if you have a high replacement rate, you're going to sell more of these, and you're going to have to sell more of these as well. I mean, you're getting rid of more of these, and you're going to have to sell more heifers. But so it all ties together. Now, when you look at this list, you guys are familiar with EPDs, right? If you've ever looked at bull sale catalogs or semen catalogs, you're familiar with EPDs. Now, when you look at this, do we have a cow herd intake EPD? We don't. No one does. But we can calculate, we can actually estimate how much a bull's daughters will eat by what. If we know their mature size and we know their milk production level, we can predict this pretty well, right? And we know that, right? We have mature size EPDs, we have milk production EPDs. So these are the ERTs, and these are the EPDs. So when it comes to cow herd intake, if we have milk and mature weight, that's probably the best we're going to do. I mean, we don't have a system where we can go out and measure how much grass a cow is eating. But if we know her mature weight and we know her milk production potential, we can predict her intake fairly accurately. We know we can do that. Okay, so replacement rate. How do we get at that? We don't have a EPD per se for replacement rate. What do we have? What would be the EPD that would allow us to predict this? Stayability. Very good, young lady. So stay. So we know stay and actually heifer preg. If you have both of those things, so heifer preg is ability of a heifer to get pregnant and to actually calve. Stayability is their ability from that point in time to stay in the herd. They're two different things, and they're actually very different traits. In fact, the correlation between the two is very weak, which is surprising. I mean, most people think, well, if they're good as a heifer, they can get bred and calf successfully, they should be good from then on. But that's not actually what we find. We find that the relationship between stayability and heifer preg is pretty weak, the genetic relationship. So anyway, stayability and heifer pregnancy. And if you have these two things, we can calculate replacement rate. We know if we have good stayability, high levels of stayability, the cows stay a long time, the tractor lasts a long time, we're going to have low replacement rates, right? Okay, so if we go down to output, so if this is the ERT weaning weight, what's the EPD we need? This is a trick one because this is really easy. This is the EPD, we have it. If we have weaning weight, that is the EPD that we need. Now we need to know if we have weaning weight, that's not enough. We need to know how many calves are going to survive to weaning, because if we have huge weaning weights, we can have 900-pound weaning weight, but if we have a 10% survival to weaning, we're not going to do very well, are we? No, so we need to know survival rate to weaning. And what EPD do we have that we can get at that? Jim actually gave a hint, but he's an old guy, so you guys probably didn't listen that close. So, calving ease and maternal calving ease if we have a calving ease EPD and a maternal calving ease EPD, we can get a pretty good gauge on what kind of survival rate we would expect to weaning. So we got calving ease. Now, that young lady back there talked about herd health. Okay, so right now, this is the economically relevant trait. When we're talking about herd health, that's still the economically relevant trait. Right now, these are the only 2 EPDs we have that will help us predict that. The industry's working on having an EPD for disease resistance, which of course is going to make a difference here too. Because if you calve easy, if you have cows that calve easy, that helps. But if they're also resistant to disease, even in the cow-calf phase, that's going to help. So someday, besides these 2 traits, we probably will have a disease-resistant EPD, and that will add information here. So salvage value, what's the EPD for salvage value? It's mature weight. If you have a mature weight EPD, we can calculate salvage value. The very baseline salvage value is just weight. So we can refine it more. We can refine it. We can use things like yield grade. We know cattle that tend to have higher yield grades, the females, even the cull females, are going to have more value because they're going to yield bigger. They're going to give you better yields. So Jim was right, and we can refine that. And we have EPDs like yield grade EPD that we can actually do a better job of that. Now, but he also is bringing us into this realm. So these are all biological traits, right? Now I talked about economics. We're talking about economics. We're talking like an accountant, okay? So what else do we need besides the biological traits to calculate profit?